Hey, First Things First listeners, before we start the show, I wanted to tell you about our brand new Fox Sports app and website, foxsports.com, reimagined for the modern sports fan. Go ahead, download the new app right now. You don't even have to pause this episode. Every day on the new app and website, you'll see the top stories in sports, plus a rich world of written content, videos, social media, and analytics to give you a 360-degree view of the most important stories of the day. Streaming live TV has never been so easy or elegant. Every Fox Sports game, including all pregame and postgame shows, as well as the televised version of this show, just a click away. For the extra invested fan, we also go deep with real-time wagering lines, trending prop bets, win probability, and key player projections. So download the new Fox Sports app or visit www.foxsports.com. Now let's start the show. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe alongside Nick Wright, Brandon Marshall, Kevin Wiles. If you are anywhere in the tri-state area, maybe even the Northeast, we're buried under about a foot of snow. We are cozy. We are all set to go, so don't go anywhere. Stay in bed.
On that note,
got you covered. Yeah.
And give your kids a snow day. If your school's like, oh no, because it's virtual now. There's no snow days.
Find a way.
Kids, stay home.
As the responsible,
go make snowmen. Go make snowmen.
As the responsible
so snow days are just gone now? Snow days are just gone now.
Stay in school.
That's great. That's great.
No, you gotta learn.
Stay in school, but you get a snow day. Kids, you have the day off.
We're already off to a blazing start.
Congrats.
Guys, let's go. I'm not going to start the show off this great snowy morning by telling you Houston has a problem, but a problem Houston has. James Harden finally spoke to the media. First time since requesting a trade. Remember, he showed up late to training camp, and then he didn't speak to the media following his debut Tuesday night. But last night, he did open up, sort of. Here's James Harden.
Do you still want the Rockets to trade you? And if so, why?
Right now, I'm just focused on being here. Today was good. Yesterday felt really good being out there. The first time since the bubble. Haven't really had an opportunity to do a lot of 5-on-5 work, but for my first time being out there, I think I felt pretty good. So,
James, what was the point that you were trying to get across when you went to Atlanta and Vegas when training camp was starting?
I was just training.
What were you training for?
The start of the NBA season.
How did going to Atlanta and Vegas help you there when the Rockets were starting training camp in Houston?
Just my personal trainers.
Yeah.
For all you young reporters out there, that's how you do it. You follow up and you follow up and you follow up till you still don't get what you want. Nick, I'll start with you. How telling was James Harden's first media session since his trade request?
All right, before I answer the question, and I wish I had an old school press hat to put on, I'm going to do a little journalism here. I used to live in Houston. I covered this team. I still have some folks down there. I can independently confirm that James Harden was with his trainers, and I can tell you who they are. There's one named Cinnamon. There was one named Destiny he was with. And I think Jade was also prominently involved.
Wow.
But I don't know which city was which. So he wasn't lying. He was with his trainers, and he was getting ready for the NBA season. You can go ahead and put that on the bottom line. It's not a Woj bomb. It's a Wright bomb. Go ahead and report that out. Hey, man, Brandon, what'd the Rockets say? We're ready to get uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
Okay. It's going to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And part of demanding a trade, if you don't then immediately get traded, is not showing up and acting like everything's fine, because that de-incentivizes the team to trade you. James doesn't want to be there, and he's going to act as such. Now, I do believe now that he is there, Brandon, he is going to, when the season starts, produce at the level of one of the greatest scorers we've ever had in this league. I don't think he's going to tank games. I don't think he's going to mail in effort. No. But I think the interactions with the media, coaches, front office are going to be, as the Rockets put it, Brandon, uncomfortable.
That's right. No, you're 100% right. Hey, Jenna, I remember being in that same seat. That is the worst place you can be as a player.
You know
those hard questions are coming. Yeah, I mean, whatever you say, you're going to be wrong. If you talk about CP3, Westbrook, and why these guys don't want to play with you, did you ask for them to be traded, or why would they want to be traded? Like, you're just going to lose there. So you just got to go up there and give the most generic answer. Look, this is how it's going to be until he's traded. It's going to be uncomfortable for everyone, even James Harden. Players don't want to be in that position. That's why he didn't talk to the media yesterday. So, look, James Harden is one of those guys, like Nick said, is going to go out there and ball, but this is one of the reasons why you need to figure out how to move this guy ASAP. I mean, I don't want my teammates answering these questions every single day, and, the coaching staff and ownership. This is going to be a problem, Wilds, until he's traded.
But, Brandon, you've seen a lot of press conferences. You've done a lot of press conferences. This press conference on the uncomfortability scale did not crack the top 100. If this is as worse as it's going to get, that he sits there and just deflects it and says, yeah, I'm focused on the season, then so be it. This is not that uncomfortable. We've seen things go really sideways in press conferences. This was overall fine. It's a mountain out of a molehill right now.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. I never understood why we had to talk to the media once a week, and if we didn't, we'll get fined. And one day, I think it was John Lynch, safety, now the general manager for the 49ers, came up to me and said, Brandon, the reason why you got to talk is because they're the ones that pay our bill. The business around our sport is because it's media driven. So a lot of times players don't understand why we have to do it, but it's part of being a professional athlete. It's part of being a pro. And James Harden, he's going to have to sit up there every single day, and he's going to have to answer the tough questions, and he's going to make it uncomfortable for everyone, Nick.
And now that you're on this side of it, Brandon, doesn't it feel good to have some to lead a show with? Because James Harden spoke.
There you go.
Guys, so yesterday a report came out adding another layer to Harden's ongoing situation. The report said the Rockets' culture could be pretty much summed up as, quote, whatever James Harden wants, including taking trips on off days, excused absences from practice. Nick, do you think the Rockets gave Harden too much power?
No, I don't, and I'm going to say something that I don't think anyone on TV is going to say today, but I believe it to my core. If James Harden is traded today, the James Harden Rockets era was a massive success. Since he got there, they are the only team in the league to make the playoffs every year. They were the only team to put any type of fear whatsoever into a healthy Golden State team once they got Durant. And I understand what people are screaming at their television screens, but they didn't win a title. Here's the ugly truth about the NBA, my favorite sport. Let's go back 40 years. 40 years, 1980 to now. How many champions didn't have one of the 20 greatest players in the history of the sport on their roster? 2. The 2019 Raptors, who won because the other team was decimated by injury, and Wild's beloved 04 Pistons. That's the list. You know how you win titles in this league? You have a player that is a top of the pyramid all-time great. So if James Harden failed, it's because he wasn't quite good enough. While he was great, he wasn't better than Steph, he wasn't better than Durant, he wasn't better than LeBron. And guess what? Steph, Durant, LeBron get all the titles. That's how the NBA works. And so they gave him a lot of power. It worked as well as it realistically could have, Brandon.
Nick, look,
great take.
They didn't give him too much power, but James Harden is tripping. He's straight tripping. Look, he took it way too far. He definitely did. Now we're starting to see why they couldn't get over the hump in the playoffs. Now we're starting to see why they imploded in the playoffs. How do you go through the regular season ball, be so dynamic and electrifying, and then get into the postseason and you go 3 for 20? Like, come on. Now we're seeing it because it's in the details, because it's the little things. These are the things that LeBron James is willing to do. LeBron James is willing to be a great leader on the court, off the court. LeBron James treats the janitor the same way he treats AD. He's not willing to do that. James Harden is tripping. James Harden needs to look himself in the mirror and figure out who he wants to be as a person, because the reports that's coming out, they're not pretty. And if I was in the locker room with James Harden, it would have been some problems. This is where I struggle in the National Football League in the locker room. Guys, if you don't want to be on time, if you don't want to do things the right way, if you don't want to be a pro every single day, then you're going to be held accountable. This is the reason why, Wilds, this team hasn't achieved the ultimate, and that's winning the championship, because of James Harden's behavior off the court and how he treats people.
Okay, so I think I'm in the middle between you guys. I'm nowhere near what Nick is saying, where, quote, part of the success of the Rockets is, quote, they put fear in Golden State, which is a great quality if you're managing a haunted house or you run one of those Halloween stores and you're selling costumes. But for an NBA team, that is actually not a qualifier. But Brandon, I am not that mad at him for sort of like living a normal life of a rich person. And my buddy Ben Dietrich, who was on the Cookies Hoops podcast, had two good tweets that I wanted to show you now that I think perfectly encapsulate what I'm talking about. The first is this: 99% of the criticism directed at James Harden feels unearthed from a 1996 time capsule, including a vinyl copy of Stakes Is High by De La Soul. I went to a De La Soul concert in Philly. Goody Mob open. Next tweet. Oh boy, Mr. Practice, hanging with rappers, wanted spending instead of investing in treasury bonds. Like, I buy this a little bit. Like, he's doing rich guy stuff like, but Kevin, he took private planes. Like, you know who else did? Mike Bloomberg. Like, that's how it works. Like, he was hanging out with Lil Baby. Like, so what? I don't care. It's just normal rich guy stuff. Sorry that he's not like constantly posting his hyperbaric chamber to score points with the media. Like, wow, another hyperbaric chamber, post. I'm so impressed. You're sleeping with those huge things on your leg. No offense to House Athlete, Brandon. That is not a shot at House Athlete. I'm just a little upset at all the hyperbaric chamber talk on IG.
Just to be very quick here, I don't think Brandon has any issue with the private planes or who James Harden hangs out with. I think it's the late to practice. I think it's the putting your teammates in an awkward spot. But as far as like, it's an accomplishment putting fear in the Warriors, if James Harden's tenure with the Rockets was a failure, then I guess Charles Barkley's tenure with the Suns, total failure. We can go down the list of guys who, with the benefit of hindsight and 20 years perspective, we're like, that was a really, really good run. They just weren't quite good enough to be the greatest players ever. That's where Harden is.
All right, well, clearly this story's far from over. We got to take a turn, head down to Tampa, where Tom Brady just got a big vote of confidence from someone you might not have expected it from. First things first, back after this.
What's up, First Thing First listeners? It's your boy Shay Sharp, co-host of FS1's Undisputed. I wanted to tell you about my new podcast, Club Shay Shay, where we always do something before two something. Each week, I sit down with a guest for a drink and conversation, and as host and proprietor of Club Shay Shay, I've welcomed in esteemed guests such as Snoop Dogg, Floyd Money Mayweather, LeVar Ball, Isaiah Thomas, just to mention a few. Whether I'm talking to an athlete, a musician, an actor, or a lifelong friend, Club Shay Shay is a place where people share inspiring and motivational stories about their journeys to prominence. The new episode drops every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Club Shay Shay now and make sure you never miss a new episode. Now, back to First Things First.
Let us head to Tampa Bay now. It's hard to grade the season up to this point. For one, Tom Brady. We've seen some flashes of brilliance. We've seen some duds. Welcome to life in your 40s, buddy. This past Sunday against the Vikings in one of the most important games of this season, Tom showed up, plain and simple. And so his head coach, Bruce Arians, doesn't want to hear any more criticism of his quarterback. Take a listen.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody's criticizing Tom. I mean, what he did at the end of the half and to start the second half is very, very few teams can score 17 points in a matter of 5 or 6 minutes. No matter if we don't make a first down on the first 2 third downs, I don't care if we finish the half with 17 points. I don't care how we start. So I mean, yeah, he's not getting enough credit for what he's doing.
Hey, Brandon, is Bruce Arians right? Tom Brady's not getting enough credit for what he's doing out there?
Well, I wouldn't say not getting enough credit, because when you're the GOAT, the expectation is for you to look like the GOAT every single day, whether it's in practice or on Thursday night football, Sunday night football. Like, you have to play at a high level, and he hasn't gotten that done on a consistent basis this year. But look, Tom Brady has changed everything about this organization this year. Last year, they went 7-9, and they weren't in the playoffs. This year, they already got one more win than they had last year, and they're going to go to the playoffs. Tom Brady is definitely bringing this team together. He's brought this team together. You have to understand how difficult it is to not have an offseason, to not have a preseason in a new situation. Let me give you one play. Let's go trips right, all go Gopher, and we're going to go X-Omaha backside. Now, this is one play. There's some teams have 200, 300 plays in their playbook, but then there's key words that can change the entire dynamic of one play. So these are the things that you spend months working out and understanding so you can play fast on the field. If you play slow on the field, then that's when mistakes happen. So let's go trips right. All go for X-Omaha. Then let's go zig. Let's go zag. Let's go zoom. Let's go tray. Let's go tricks. Let's go on. Let's go off.
Go.
That changes everything. So I want to highlight that because they did not have an offseason. They didn't have a preseason. So for them to come in and be sitting here in this position, it's a win, Nick.
All right, so listen, the question is, are we going to grade Tom Brady on a curve? Or are we going to grade Tom Brady against his contemporaries? Because if we're going to grade him on the 43-year-old curve, then yeah, he's not getting enough credit. Like we about once a year, you'll see a video of a 100-year-old man who sets the world record for the fastest 100 yards by a 100-year-old man. Yeah. And it's like, man, that guy is amazing. But if he were like, hey, Usain Bolt, Yusafa Powell, let's dance, then it's like, oh, okay, well, you stink. Actually, you're terrible, and I'm not. Now, I'm not saying Brady's that, but it's what we're judging him against. I'm going to have the very polarizing opinion that we should judge him against other NFL quarterbacks. So can we just see how he stacks up this year? Let's just show it. His completion percentage is 25th. That's worse than Dalton. His yards per pass is 21st. That's worse than Cam Newton. He's got the 5th most interceptions in football. That's more than Daniel Jones. And his passer rating's worse than Baker Mayfield, who everyone hates but me. So, I don't know. It seems like he's been okay. Wild. It seems like we talk about Tampa having a great defense, a great offensive line, a stable of running backs, and a great group of wide receivers. Maybe they should be a little better than the 6th seed in the NFC. I don't know. Okay. But compared to the other 43-year-old quarterbacks, he's awesome. Unfortunately for him, he's the only one, so I don't know. That's where I land.
You compared him to the 100-year-old sprinter. Almost like the most adorable video every year. Unfortunately, it's a new guy, but it's they always have the tank top. Okay. I want to focus on the criticism, Brandon, and get your take on this. Because the rule of thumb in management is praise in public and criticize in private. And Bruce Arians has taken a different tact. His tact is like, I'm going to be honest most of the time. Honesty with an asterisk, I'll call it. Because here are some of the criticisms that we've heard in the media. And spoiler alert, they're all from Bruce Arians. Here's one. I think he's getting confused a few times with the coverage. Bruce Arians in public about Tom Brady. We don't miss the deep ball in practice, that's for sure. Well, it's Tom Brady. They're not throwing the deep ball, I don't think. Here's one on Mike Evans. Mike was open a bunch of times in that game. He didn't get targeted. That was all. Mike was open. So it's like, wow, Bruce Arians, what's going on with this guy? Taking shots at the GOAT. He's sounding like Nick Wright with a Kangol on. But when stuff really hits the fan, Bruce Arians will come through for you. When Tom Brady obviously forgot how many downs there were, here was Bruce Arians' criticism of Tom Brady.
Bruce, at the end of the game there, that last drive, it looked like Tom might have been confused with what down it was. Did he not know it was 4th down?
Yeah, he knew.
I love it. It's fantastic, Brandon. So I think Bruce Arians has taken a lot of guff for the way that he's handled Tom Brady. But I actually think he's like, listen, I'm a straight shooter. It is what it is. But if we're ever really in trouble, I got your back.
Look, Bruce Arians, we know there's only a few people as worse than him when they're dealing with the media. Doug Peterson, and then it's him, right? He's going to get better. Players are going to get better, and that's all you want. In November, December, everybody needs to be trending in the right direction. So I'm actually happy to see Bruce come out and support Tom Brady and say, look, he doesn't get enough credit. Because at the beginning of the year, we were criticizing Bruce for how he was dealing with the criticism of Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I can't watch that 4-down video. It's like watching figure skating. It stresses me out just to see it. Speaking of elder statesmen in the NFL who may or may not be getting it done, what can we expect from Big Ben after back-to-back losses?
That was saying words, man.
You don't know my figure skating tape?
Figure skating? No. So I'd like to make a wager. I'd like to make a wager with you, Colin. Let's set the Bills' playoff victory over-under at 1. Meaning, if they win 0 playoff games, I win. And if they win 2 or more, you win. 1 is a push. That would be the stakes. I only win if they don't win a single playoff game. You win if they get to at least I guess it would be the conference championship game or further. Do you agree with that terms, and then we can discuss stakes?
I agree with those terms.
Does that seem fair?
Yes.
Okay. I'm so glad you said yes. So obviously, there's no sense in betting actual dollars with you. You wouldn't know if you lost it. So
come on.
Let's bet this. Can we show this? The loser has to do this in homage to the Bills Mafia. I really hope we have this video ready, or else this entire bit is not going to work. Yeah, there we go. There we go. On TV, if the Bills make the conference championship game or further, I will do that. And if they go 1 and done in the playoffs, you will do that.
Yeah. Here, Lloyd.
He said yes.
Here, Lloyd, this helps.
He said yes.
Tell everybody what this is exactly. This is ketchup and mustard. And it's a full bath. You're willing to do it, Nick?
Yeah. Oh, I won't have to.
Don't do it, Nick.
The Bills in the conference championship game? I do like that Jenna really thought the audience needed an explanation of what was happening here. I think people got it. Like, what else could that possibly be? But I'm not going to. Colin's going to have to do it.
Give it away for me.
Colin is going to have to do it. Live on what, Brandon? You think the Bills are going to win multiple playoff games?
Listen, if Colin wins, this will be there forever. Will forever be on the internet with you with ketchup and mustard. Are you sure you want to do this?
Of course I'm sure
Your
I want to do
grandkids
this.
will see
I also
this.
won't lose. That's fine. What up, Wild?
There's zero chance Colin is doing this. There is 0 chance Colin is doing this. Zero. You'll be able to make another bet, but you should start creatively thinking of something because Colin is not doing this.
No, he should.
Zero chance.
He said yes.
Wait a minute. I know we have to move on. We have to stay here for a moment. Because while I did bully my friend and mentor, Colin Cowherd, into a bet I'm certain he instantly regretted, I am not going to let Kevin Wildes question Colin Cowherd's gambling integrity. He made the wager. If the Bills get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, he will honor the wager.
He has to do it.
There is no question about it. Joy Taylor is going to stand on his throne of a desk. He is going to stand beneath her, and she is going to squirt him with ketchup and mustard. It is a throne. It's a perfect angle to be sprayed with ketchup and mustard.
And that is a good time to move on.
Bet that he won't do it.
He has the best set on TV.
Let us now put that to bed and head to Pittsburgh. After starting the season 11-0, Steelers finally lost a game in Week 13. We said it was a hiccup, 1 loss. Most said they'd be fine. Then they lost in Week 14. Now it's heartburn, back-to-back losses, and the world is ending. Drama aside, the quarterback looks his age, the run game non-existent, and the defense is just riddled with injuries. Not to worry, though. Big Ben thinks they've got time to figure this all out. Take a listen.
There's a lot of outside noise, right? And deservedly so. We haven't played well. We've lost 2 in a row. The fans are getting anxious. The talking heads are doing what they're supposed to do and talk bad about us and all that stuff, which is, we've earned it and deserved it recently. What I would tell guys and the mindset and the approach that I'm taking is it's not the end of the world. We've got 3 games left in the regular season. We have guaranteed ourselves a chance in the playoffs. So we're in the postseason. We have 3 weeks now to get it going, to turn it around, to give ourselves the best chance to reach our ultimate goal, which is winning a Super Bowl.
Brandon, this was your hometown team. This was your AFC pick. Do you trust Big Ben and the now 11-2 Pittsburgh Steelers?
Woo, Jenna, little kid, grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 241 Mayflower Street. Grew up playing ball with my black and yellow on. My car, my 72 Cutlass is black and yellow. After the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's the inspiration. This year I came out. Brandon, give me your preseason predictions. What's going to happen this year? Oh, just look out for the Tennessee Titans. Look out for the Buffalo Bills, the Indianapolis Colts. Russell Wilson will be MVP. The Seattle Seahawks will go to the Super Bowl. And what? The Pittsburgh Steelers will go to the Super Bowl, right? And then you guys laughed at me. Oh, noodle arm Big Ben. You guys got on me. How the heck can you say this team is going to be good? And they start off 11-0, and now we're on a 2-game slide.
How's it feeling?
That's all bad.
Now, how's it going, buddy?
Oh, man. Look. Listen, 11-2 is great. A lot of teams will give a leg and an arm to be 11-2, but here's the deal. We have real problems in Pittsburgh. We are the Walking Dead on defense. That's our strength. We've always been a defensive city, a defensive team, an organization. We play good ball, and we always run the ball. That's who the Pittsburgh Steelers is. Their identity hasn't changed, Nick, in 25 years. And now all of a sudden we can't run the lick. Like, come on. We have real problems, and I'm concerned. I'm truly concerned.
Yeah, it should be concerned because the defense needs to be A+ for this team to be able to make the Super Bowl, and you do fear that they're too injured. I don't question the talent of the defense. You fear they're too injured in order to carry the offense. And the offense, most notably, the lack of balance and Big Ben's numbers, if you just look at raw yardage, look fine, but yardage per attempt is terrible. I think they're in real trouble, and I think you saw the signs of it well before they lost these 2 games. The Steelers, if you go over their schedule and give them letter grades for each game, they remind me of, he won't mind. It reminds me of my son in high school. First month of school, A, B, A, and it's like, must be basketball eligibility coming up. You cleared that threshold, now let's look at the grade card. Okay, second half against Tennessee, that's a D. Ravens game where Lamar has 4 turnovers, you almost lose, that's a C-. Cowboys game where you're down 10 in the 4th quarter, that's a D. Oh, you got a couple A's, Cincinnati and Jacksonville. Oh, those were just attendance grades. It was show up and you get the A. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, now we're back to D. The Ravens game with RG3, you almost lost, losing to Washington. I'll give you a C- for the Buffalo game. When's the last time the Steelers looked great? Honestly, the answer's the Browns game before Halloween. So Wilds, I don't think it's just a 2-game blip. I think it's a 2-month trend. Now they'll get back on track because they get another completion grade this week and show up against Cincinnati. You'll win and you'll look good. But I think they're in big trouble right now.
Okay. I've got issues with every single person on the set right now. Jenna, for your ice skating take earlier going to break, I still haven't wrapped my head around that. Nick, the stuff you're doing to the Steelers right now, we're not allowed to do to the Chiefs. When Patrick Mahomes throws 3 interceptions and takes a 30-yard sack, we're like, wow, shows the grit of the team. Shows that he's able to come back. The 30-yard sack, actually a highlight. Granted, that was my take, but you co-signed it. And Brandon, I got a text from a longtime Steeler fan, and he said, Kevin, how are you? I said, fine. He said, thank you for supporting the Steelers. And I said, you know what? I don't deserve this text because that's Brandon Marshall's job. And I will give you a little lesson on how to do it right now, just because we're all new on the show. Patriots, 4% chance making the playoffs. Looking good, on the way up. You know, darkest before the dawn. Cam Newton's on the way back. Oh, guess who's back? Julian Edelman. Don't let us win a few games. Well, got Brian Flores coming back. You think Bill Belichick's going to lose to a rookie quarterback and one of his proteges? No way. I'd be very careful if I was the rest of the AFC. But you're getting too nervous. You're getting too nervous about the 11-2 Steelers. And Nick, sorry, now I'm going to go back to you. Now, you got to be confident. Back to you. In your laminated prediction of all the games, did you have the Steelers at 11-2? And if you didn't, be honest, are they overachieving or underachieving?
No, they've overachieved.
Good take,
but
Wilds.
They've overachieved. They're better than I thought they would be. But they also have not looked anything like a contender since halftime against Tennessee, which was before Halloween. And they are a team that is judged by, can you make the Super Bowl? Because they're the Steelers, because they were last year 8-8 despite having the worst quarterback play in football, because they were the last remaining undefeated team. And there's a reason why you're like, we can't do this to the Chiefs. For the record, you can do whatever you want to the Chiefs. You can say they're ripe for the picking. You can say they're overrated. You can call them the 2011 Green Bay Packers, going to go 15-1 and lose the first playoff game. The problem is you still got to show up for the shows in the playoffs. Those takes are available. No one's on that corner. No one's on the Chiefs are actually overrated corner. I'd love for someone to stake it out. Let's see how that works out for you. The reason
they won the Super Bowl last year.
Brandon, right, but Brandon, and I want to support Brandon in this. The reason that even though Brandon picked them to go to the Super Bowl, he's anxious about it is because they don't look good. There's only so much lipstick you can put on this thing, and the record is the only thing impressive about the Steelers right now, given their injuries on defense and their lack of knowing what they want to be on offense. But hey,
Big Ben says they're going to turn things around. Big Ben's got confidence. All right, let's get back to the NBA now. And we finally heard from James Harden. Though wait till you hear how he broke his silence. That's next. But first, Kevin Harlan calling NBA preseason games from his own home.
Sacramento, scene of Game 2 in our preseason doubleheader. Welcome, everyone, to the NBA on TNT. Tonight, it's the Golden State Warriors and the Sacramento Kings. Good evening, everyone. Kevin Harlan along with the Hall of Famer Grant Hill. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Grant, it just seems like yesterday we ended the season. Now here 72 days later, we're starting a very quick turnaround for the NBA and its players.
First things first, we got to talk some Chiefs. AFC's top team facing the Saints Sunday. Who's favored? Glad you asked. Jenna, Fox Bet Sportsbook has the Chiefs by 3 on the road. Who'll be under center for the Saints? Another great question. Drew Brees reportedly could return to practice today, but it's still up in the air whether or not he'll go Sunday. Saints could certainly use him against a Chiefs team that's now won how many? 8 in a row. Coach Mangini back with us now. Coach, here's the question. Would a win over the Saints cement the Chiefs as favorites to repeat as Super Bowl champs?
And I am so curious who came up with this question, Jenna. This must have been a hard one to piece together in the production meeting. I think it definitely puts them in the driver's seat, and it pains me to say that. But I really like what New Orleans done this season. The fact that they have been able to win as effectively as they have with Taysom Hill has been borderline amazing, and how effective he's been has been the same. Now, that being said, coming off the loss that they had, they're going to get an angry team. They're going to get a focused team. They're going to get a team that's very good defensively and can run the ball against probably their greatest weakness, the Chiefs' greatest weakness, which is stopping the run. If it is a Super Bowl preview, the value in this is similar to when we played St. Louis, the Rams, the first time in the regular season, then we're able to play them again in the Super Bowl. You gain a lot of information from this experience. But I'd say beating a team like the Saints at this point, with a little bit of an asterisk with no Drew Brees, definitely puts them in the driver's seat.
Listen, people know that what I'm going to say here. The Chiefs have been the favorites all year. Everybody knows that. And they're almost too good to be interesting. Now, their run defense is bad. It's actually worse. I think the Chiefs have the worst run defense in football. They're 26th ranked, but the 6 teams beneath them in the rankings are always behind. So teams just run on them to kill the clock. Teams are trailing the Chiefs, and they're still running effectively. That is a bit of a concern. But I want to throw it back to you quickly, Coach. If Taysom Hill doesn't play, if Drew Brees doesn't play, if Taysom Hill does play, how much do you think the Chiefs coaching staff puts into, we're in even with a loss, we're in driver's seat for the 1 seed. This could be a Super Bowl matchup. We're not going to be able to take anything game film from their offense if Drew Brees isn't out there, if there is a rematch. Do we want to hold something in reserve in case there is this matchup in the Super Bowl so they don't have the ability to study us the way we won't have the ability to study them?
I don't think that's going to be the case. If anything, you're gonna try to win the game to make sure that you secure that number 1 seed, and there's no question it's so much more valuable this year than it has been in the past, and so much changes between now and the Super Bowl that you can do what you want to do at this point without projecting out that far, and really by doing that it gives you a lot of excellent information if you do end up facing them a second time in the Super Bowl. And that was what happened with us, and probably the difference in the Super Bowl is all the information we gathered from the mistakes we made with what we thought was our best plan in the first game.
Yeah, Wilds, I'll be quick here. Look, regardless if they win or not, the Chiefs are in the driver's seat. They're that good. They're better than where they were last year. Last year, when you turned on film, what you saw was Mahomes running around and just playing lights out, like plays that you see maybe once every 2-3 years. He was doing it week in and week out. You're not seeing that this year. He's just playing at a high level and playing super consistent. What you're seeing is the Chiefs beating teams in different ways. When you think about the New England Patriots and why they've been able to dominate for so long is because they evolve week in to week out. You don't know how they're going to beat you. You don't know how they're going to attack you. They have a new playbook, it seems, every other week. So I think that's what the Chiefs are evolving to. It's like, okay, you want to take away the pass game? We'll just beat you on the ground. Okay, you want to take away a run? We'll beat you with passes and screens. And they're also playing good defense, good enough defense with Coach Spags. Yeah. Coach Spags, sometimes he's throwing the house at you, Nick, and sometimes he's playing just conservative. Yeah. But I think Coach Spags is good enough to get the job done.
Listen, I'm a little conflicted in this game. I think a loss actually could be good for the Chiefs because they keep playing with fire and trailing opponents and then believing they'll come back. So on one side of the coin, because I think they're 1 seed either way, I think a loss could be good for them. On the other side of the coin, if the Chiefs lose to Taysom Hill, I might have to resign my position on the show. So I hope they win.
That's fair.
I don't think I could deal with it. I don't think I
go
can
to
deal
break.
with it.
Let's go to break.
We got to take a turn. It's time to ask ourselves this. Does Pittsburgh have a Big Ben problem? We're talking Steelers on the other side. First things first.
Wilds just low-key insulted me more than anyone has ever insulted me on television. I don't know how much of the audience heard it, but I feel so bad. It was way out of bounds.
I didn't hear it.
Jenna. That was not nice. I got something for Wilds.
That was not nice.
I got something for Wilds.
Well, you're going to have to tell us what it was. We're in Pittsburgh, and Coach back with us. After starting the season 11-0, Steelers finally lost a game in Week 13. We said it was a hiccup. We said it was one loss. Most said they'd be fine. Then they lost in Week 14. Now it's heartburn, back-to-back losses, and the world is ending. Drama aside, the quarterback, Big Ben, looking his age, that run game a little non-existent, and that defense, which was superb, no longer elite. They're a little banged up. Not to worry, though, Big Ben thinks they've got time to figure it out. Take a listen.
There's a lot of outside noise, right? And deservedly so. We haven't played well. We've lost 2 in a row. The fans are getting anxious. The talking heads are doing what they're supposed to do and talk bad about us and all that stuff, which is, we've earned it and deserved it recently. What I would tell guys and the mindset and the approach that I'm taking is it's not the end of the world. We've got 3 games left in the regular season. We have guaranteed ourselves a chance in the playoffs. So we're in the postseason. We have 3 weeks now to get it going, to turn it around, to give ourselves the best chance to reach our ultimate goal, which is winning a Super Bowl.
All right, Coach Mangini back with us. I got to tell you, Ben sounded good. He sounded like he had a plan. At this point, you trust Ben Roethlisberger and the 11-2 Steelers coach?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what future GM Nick Wright has to say about the Steelers and how to fix them. But I definitely trust Big Ben. I think I've been as strong a supporter of the Steelers as anybody has. Now, that being said, coming off the 2 losses, and there's a sounding of the alarm, but that alarm has been sounded for quite some time. They didn't play well against the Ravens in the first game, then they didn't play well against the Cowboys, then they didn't play well again against the Ravens at the second time. Those things have been frustrating, and you can hear it in Mike Tomlin's tone and comments over the last 4 to 6 weeks. But you look at them defensively, and they were leading in 3 categories that really nobody's led in any of those or all 3 of those categories at the end of the season, and turnovers and sacks and points allowed. The closest was like the 85 Bears and the 2000 Ravens. So they're in elite company there. In terms of the receivers, I think to me that's where I have the biggest issue. You watch these games and there's opportunities and the ball's thrown in very catchable places and they're being dropped. And I know that Nick is going to talk about how much he loves Juju doing his TikToks on other people's logos and
nice.
that element of it. And I get it. He's a big TikTok fan. That type of stuff, though, it's when you win 11 games in a row, it can be easy to get complacent, and there are elements of that. And now they've lost 2 games in a row, and you'd like to see that dramatic sense of urgency return so they can achieve to their potential, which I think their potential is very high.
Coach, I thought their potential was extremely high coming into this year. People laughed at me. Preseason predictions. Brandon, who you got? Well, I like a few teams to look out for. The Tennessee Titans, the Indianapolis Colts. Also pay attention to Buffalo Bills. Out in the NFC, I picked the Seattle Seahawks to go to the Super Bowl. And then in the AFC, I picked the Pittsburgh Steelers, my hometown team. And what happens? We start the season 11-0, and we start having these issues. You're right. Coach Tomlin start highlighting these things after wins like we played like crap, and now we're on a 2-game slide. Coach, we have a problem. And maybe you can help me here because I'm the player, you're the coach. But if I'm in that locker room right now, Coach, I'm like, well, we're the Walking Dead on defense. Right, we have some real issues there. This is our strength of our team. And then on offense, what really made us really good is being able to run the ball. Beginning of the season, first 5-6 weeks of the season, we're almost averaging 5 yards a carry. And now we go from one end of the spectrum to the other end where we're barely running. So it seems to be no commitment to the run game. And I don't know how we fix these issues.
Look, there are a lot of teams that wish that their defense even resembled anything close to what Pittsburgh has. And I don't think they're the walking dead at all. I think they do a lot of good things, a lot of interesting things, a lot of challenging things. And they've got a significant amount of talent on defense. I believe it's 7 number 1 draft picks on that side of the ball. And they've got a Hall of Fame quarterback. And playing against Ben year in and year out, and I know he's gotten older, Nick, and that immediately means that he can't perform anymore. But he can, and he does, and he has consistently. My frustration stems from the things that are inherently in their control, which are the drops, and that to me is as big a problem as anything, and that's concentration. That's not ability.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not going to make excuses for the drops. I could sit here and say that when, a receiver is so shocked to see a ball travel more than 10 yards in the air from old Rigatoni Roethlisberger that it surprises him, so he drops it. But I'm not going to say that. Those guys are paid professionals. They need to catch the balls thrown to them. Let me address some of Brandon's issues. Because when you call him old noodle arms, so we've elevated it. It's Rigatoni Roethlisberger. That's what he'll be the rest of the year. Listen, you keep calling him noodle arm. I'm just giving you the type of noodle. When Brandon
you got to get
says
that tattooed on your arm where
walking,
they beat the Chiefs.
Okay, that's not a bet. When Brandon says they're the walking dead on defense, he's talking about the injuries. He's not talking, just to be clear, for the audience to understand, it's that they've suffered a lot of losses. And by the way, this was a top 2 run defense in football through week 7. Since then, from week 8 to now, they're a bottom 8 run defense. It's not a coincidence that right around then is when they lost Devin Bush to the season, one of those first-round picks who's awesome. They have since then lost Bud Dupree. They've had the Spillane got hurt. They've had a lot of injuries on that side of the ball, which is so damaging for that team because they do. I know Coach thinks I'm ageist. You know what? In sports, I kind of am. Because at a certain age, typically, you're not that good anymore. And I'm sorry to tell you, Big Ben's at that age. And we're seeing it. There's a reason a guy who his whole career, when Coach hated going up against him, when he was consistently making Super Bowls, AFC Championship games, it was Big Ben in the pocket, 4 seconds, somebody hits him, brushes him off, moves around, hits someone downfield, and now it's 2.1 seconds and out, dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk. You know why? Because he's old. That's why. It's not because he's not as tough as he used to be, because he's old. So I guess I am an ageist when it comes to these quarterbacks. And so, yeah, I think Wilds, the Steelers are not nearly as good as 11-2 suggests. Like the Titans are 9-4. The Titans are way better than the Steelers right now. And I don't know that many people would deny that.
Yeah, but I have a hard time sort of going through the schedule and calling wins losses and losses wins, and then we redo everything on what the schedule actually is. Although now that I say it out loud, I think it would make for a good segment. But Coach, here's a question for you. I'm inventing another new segment. It's called, Hey, Does This Matter, Coach? So here we go. The first episode of, Hey, Does This Matter? Point differential. The Bills are plus 38. The Titans are plus 54. I'll throw Washington in there because we know they're kind of like terrible. They're plus 12. Well, the Chiefs are plus 122 and the Steelers are plus 112. So it makes me think, just looking at the numbers, that it's just overblown because we are scoring a lot more points than our opponents. We're second in the whole conference. So the question is to you, Coach, on this premiere episode, hey, does that really matter or no?
Yeah, point differential matters. I don't think it's necessarily the only indicator of success because you listed a bunch of other teams that have been successful with a much lower point differential. I just when you listen to what Nick says about what did you call him, Rigatoni Roethlisberger, and how he can't throw the how he can't throw the ball deep anymore. Those points didn't get scored, without him and without him being very effective. And when you talk about receivers dropping balls, and I know you have a soft spot for receivers, especially if they underachieve, but it's their job to catch those balls, especially if they're short and catchable. And the idea that Ben can't throw the ball deep anymore, when he's eventually throwing it over, potentially Kansas City's head, we'll see whether or not you have that same sort of flippant attitude about Ben.
Listen, you got to get there. And there was a point in this year where I said on this show, the Steelers scare me because of how great the defense was playing. That point has long passed. Could the Steelers match up well with the Chiefs? Maybe. Are the Steelers going to get there to play them? Nope, they're not. And this idea that because quarterbacks once upon a time were great, They are therefore always great. It's just mystifying to me. We're watching him. You know who knows Big Ben might not be great anymore? Big Ben, who said on Sunday, quote, I might not be good anymore, and then threatened retirement. That's not me being mean to old Rigatoni. That's Big Ben himself saying it. You know what? I might not be good anymore. He was having an existential crisis, and y'all are saying I'm the bad guy. I'm just doing what Big Ben said, Jenna.
Rigatoni, Roethlisberger, sit down for 1 second. We got to talk some in or out right now. Broncos coach Vic Fangio had some nice things to say about Nick's favorite quarterback, Josh Allen, ahead of Saturday's Bills-Broncos game. Fangio said, the guy's really emerged as one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Coach, you in or out on Josh Allen being a top 3 quarterback this season?
Top 3? Top 3?
Yeah, I'm out on him being a top 3 quarterback. He's improved dramatically. I'm in on Brian Daboll being a top 3 offensive coordinator. That's what I'm definitely in on. The amount that he has helped Josh Allen develop and the difference in terms of his understanding of what's happening defensively, his control of the offense, his decision making. I think that's because, in large part, the relationship and the things that he's learning from Brian Daboll. Do I see him as being a top 3 guy at this point? No, I don't.
Top 3? I can't listen. I can't believe you said that, Coach. Josh Allen is clearly the 3rd best quarterback from his draft class. And I think that should count for something. So, I mean, I think that's obvious to everybody. You have Lamar, you have Baker, you have Josh Allen. There's nothing wrong with that.
All right, back to our top story on the other side. We finally heard from James Harden. Wait till you hear what he had to say. But first, check out this. Fun guy Kawhi Leonard joining Jimmy Kimmel last night. Take a listen.
A lot of odd stories about you, and I want to ask about one of them because it's very odd, and the story goes like this. You were at a team dinner with the Spurs when you played for the Spurs. Everyone was eating. You didn't order anything. Instead, you brought 12 apples to the table, red apples. You sat there with a knife and fork and ate each apple and said, it's apple time, apple time.
Who came up with that story right
That is not true?
You must have seen. No.
Okay.
No, not at all. I do have an apple tree, but I didn't pick my apples and bring them to dinner.
All right. All right.
Tonight, Derek Carr and the Raiders are fighting for a shot at the playoffs, but rookie sensation Justin Herbert and the Chargers are looking for the upset. Thursday night football, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on Fox, also available on NFL Network and streaming on Prime Video. Time now for Stories to Start Your Morning, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. I'm not going to tell you Houston has a problem, but a problem Houston most definitely has. James Harden finally spoke to the media, first time since requesting a trade. This on the heels of a new report that said the Rockets' culture could be pretty much summed up as whatever James wants. Remember, he showed up late to training camp. He didn't speak to the media after his preseason debut Tuesday night, but last night he opened up. Kind of. Here's James Harden.
Do you still want the Rockets to trade you? And if so, why?
Right now, I'm just focused on being here. Today was good. Yesterday felt really good being out there. First time since the bubble. Haven't really had an opportunity to do a lot of 5-on-5 work, but for my first time being out there, I think I felt pretty good. So.
James, what was the point that you were trying to get across when you went to Atlanta and Vegas when training camp was starting?
I was just training.
What were you training for?
The start of the NBA season.
How did going to Atlanta and Vegas help you there when the Rockets were starting training camp in Houston?
Just my personal trainers.
All right. Nick, did the Rockets, you think, give James Harden a little too much power, allowing him to think he could go where he wants, do what he wants, as he has been telling everyone he has?
Listen, the report that came out yesterday, Tim McMahon's report, I don't think it struck anyone by surprise. Like, people that follow the league know this is how things have been done in Houston. And if they had to do it all over again, would they change it? I don't know. I think they achieved about as much as they possibly could have. They're the only team in the league to make the playoffs each of the last 8 years. They have the most wins of any team in the league over the last 8 years since Harden's been there. But, Nick, they never won a championship. Yeah, you know why? Not because Harden likes to party, because James Harden's not quite good enough to be the best guy on a champion. And we just have 40 years of NBA history showing us. Like, Wilds, I want to ask you a question. Like, why didn't Dominique win? Why didn't Charles win? Why didn't Patrick Ewing win? Why didn't David Robinson win until Tim Duncan got there? Why didn't your buddy Tracy McGrady win? Was it because they were out partying? David Robinson's damn Navy SEAL almost. Or is it because they weren't quite
not a Navy SEAL.
Good enough? Right? Oh, he's Navy Admiral. The Admiral. Look it up. I think he was offered SEAL training. The contemporaries. Like, I'm just curious, what is the year it was like, man, Houston, they're the favorites. They're better than everybody. The year they won 65 games, they were up 3-2 on the Warriors, one of the most talented teams ever, and then their second best player got hurt. Like, what are we talking? There is so much reverse engineering results here. And if it's Harden has had rough playoff moments, it's got to be, okay, what about Giannis? Giannis is the anti-Harden from all accounts. His playoff resume right now, worse than Harden's. So how are we going to diagnose that? Or is it that Giannis right now not good enough yet? That Harden is one of the 40 greatest players ever without question, but unfortunately to win a title and to be the best guy, you probably got to be one of the 20
greatest
best players.
Scorer ever. Greatest scorer ever.
He's not the greatest scorer. No, he's not, Brandon. Brandon, he's not. He's one of the greatest scorers ever. He's one of.
He's in that conversation. He's in that conversation. That's been the narrative the last 2-3 years. Oh, he's the greatest scorer, the purest scorers. Like, come on, Nick.
Sure.
Like, it does matter. I think there's a lot of validity behind what you're saying. But when you talk about partying and that affecting your play, you're absolutely wrong there. Like, if what I eat on Friday, I knew what I ate on Friday would affect me on Sunday. On Friday, I would start carbing up. I would start eating a lot more carbs so I can have more energy come Sunday. There's a sweet science to taking care of yourself so you can be at your best week in and week out. I'm a retired. Hold on 1 second. I'm a retired athlete. Yeah. I'm a retired athlete, and right here sitting next to my desk, there's some supplements, pre-workout. Here's some more supplements, some capsules, and here's a mental fitness one. Like, as an athlete, LeBron James has shown us what it takes to be successful for a very long time. So for you to say it's not about, the little small things like partying and missing meetings, I think you're missing it right there.
But let me ask you a question. If the report was James Harden was a nun during the regular season and then partied in the postseason and look at the performance, I'd get it. But James Harden's doing his partying during the regular season. When he's winning an MVP or coming top 3 every year, when he's scoring averaging 35 points per game.
And guess, and the narrative is what's happening to James Harden in the postseason. Could it be that he's just tired? Could it be he's partying too much? Right? Like, you're talking about 82 games. That's a long season.
So what do we think happened to Giannis? What do we think happened to Giannis? Or was it just that he wasn't good enough?
We're not talking Giannis. You can say Giannis is not good enough. Giannis, he has 1 or 2 moves and that's it. Giannis can't shoot from the 3-point line. Go Harden can do it all. The only knock on James Harden is he can't play defense. That's the knock on James Harden. James Harden, how do you go from being the best NBA player in a regular season, the most dynamic, prolific scorer in a regular season, then you get in the postseason and you implode. So you got to start harping and looking at the details. Come in late. What does that do to your chemistry in the locker room? Partying. Is it catching up to him late in the season? These are conversations you have to have because the details the success is in the details. And the difference between good and great is the small things. LeBron James has done a phenomenal job of showing us how to take care of ourselves so we can be at our best potential come late in the season.
Okay, I get it. Everyone needs to sleep in a hyperbaric chamber for most of the time. And when you're not in your hyperbaric chamber, you need to be in one of those freezing cold rooms where just your head is sticking out and your body is like a polar bear. And that's the only way you can succeed. And if you're not putting that on Instagram, then are you really working hard enough? Meanwhile, if you stand around Lil Baby, he wasn't even doing anything. So as far as partying, the guy's just standing there. I think, and if he gave Lil Baby a more low-key present, I also think the media coverage will be different. Like, hey, look, I got you this thoughtful book of poems by Robert Frost. You're like, wow, what a nice guy. But just because he got him an expensive Prada bag, everyone gets mad. So, Nick, I'm going to throw something to you. Who wins here? And I'll put my tinfoil hat on, but just imaginary, which makes it actually more conspiratorial. Yeah. Imaginary tinfoil hat. Who wins? Because now it's like, let's poison the well. Like, this isn't new. This is when, like, yesterday, James Harden is like, and by the way, in the bubble, Russell Westbrook was on. And by the way, we had an off day a long time ago. So who wins? Because there was a report that, like, oh, Danny Ainge was interested, but then he was told to stay away. So do you think teams are trying to be scared off, or do you think it's just too much tinfoil hat?
No, I think it's teams that want James Harden because he is awesome, even if he hasn't been good enough to be the best player on a champion as of yet. They want James Harden, and so they're trying to hurt his trade value. And I just think we talk about Harden melting down, and I don't have the graphic made up. My apologies for that. It's very instructive if you go back one season to when Kawhi was with the Raptors and look at Kawhi's finals performance against the Warriors, his stat line, and James Harden's performance against the Warriors, who at the time were far healthier than Kawhi went up against the previous round. And what you'll see is, oh, Harden was better than Kawhi. But guess what? They weren't good enough because the Warriors were healthy and better. He's gone through his career, and it's like, why hasn't he won a title? I don't know. Because Steph wins them, and Durant wins them, and LeBron wins them, and Kawhi peeled one because the Steph and Durant got hurt. And and we're doing this post-mortem of he doesn't approach things like Russell Westbrook does.
But what happens in the postseason,
what happens to Russell Westbrook in the postseason? But Russell Westbrook's mad at his approach. This is the thing.
And Russell Westbrook's postseason
resume looks the exact same.
I can tell you this as a former player that, you know, what you eat matters, how you train matters. LeBron James is the perfect example of that. So the only thing we're thinking about is how do I get through the season in my peak performance? Like, that's the goal here.
Well, it seems like Russ is focused on those things, and the same thing happens to him. He runs into better players.
To be continued always. We got to go. Undisputed starts right now. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.